Welcome back, guys. This is Return to Tennis. I'm your host, Aaron. Thanks for returning. So today I wanted to talk about a racket company that was very important to me when I was young, and that would be Donnay. Now, if you're a younger guy, you probably are a younger player, you don't remember Donnay. You've maybe never even heard of them. If you're older like me, you kind of have some memories about Donnay being around. So let's lay some history out. Donnay started producing rackets in about 1910. They were a Belgian-based company. At one time, they were the largest racket manufacturer in the world. They even made rackets for other vendors like Wilson. Through the years, they had several key figures in tennis that played with their equipment. Margaret Court, Cliff Drysdale, Henri Leconte. Of course, the legendary Bjorn Borg played with their rackets from 1977 to 1983. Now, Borg played with a racket called the Allwood, which is an iconic racket. I mean, it's easily recognizable. It's a very famous racket. And they were doing pretty good. But starting around the time when Borg retired, things started to go a little south for him. And it wasn't just because Borg retired. Donnay had failed to read the landscape a little bit. Things were changing. Tennis was evolving. And they were slow to get on board. Graphite started to take over, right? All the other major manufacturers started making graphite rackets. Donnay was still producing wood and some aluminum, and it hurt them. As a matter of fact, by the late 80s, they were financially in some pretty deep trouble. Bankruptcies were being filed. They started bringing in outside investors to take over portions of the company. They needed to turn things around. The best way, the easiest way to turn it around would be to land a recognizable player, a marquee player to be the new face of Donnay Racquets. And fortunately, they did. In 1989, they were able to sign the bad boy of American tennis, Andre Agassi. Now, Agassi had been playing with a Prince 105, oversized. He moved over to Donnay. Donnay was working on graphite rackets. And the first racket they made for Agassi was the Pro 1 OS, oversized, 107 square inches. The original model was yellow and blue. And this was a huge move for Donnay. This was big because Agassi also was sponsored by Nike. He also had a deal with Canon cameras. The EOS Rebel was the big camera that he was endorsing. So anytime that Agassi did marketing material for Nike involving him hitting tennis balls, or for Canon, there was the Donnay Pro 1. It was free marketing, free advertising for their rackets. And it kind of helped him take off. He became not an overnight sensation, but the racket started to do very well. Agassi was brash. Agassi was flamboyant. He was easily recognizable. It was great marketing for their company. And of course, back then, being a young player myself, and like freshman, sophomore high school, I wanted to be Andre Agassi. A lot of kids did. So first opportunity I had, I got myself a Pro 1 OS. I played with it most of my sophomore year, played with it all of my junior year. Where did I get it? Well, I got it at Champ Sporting Goods because Donnay was doing so well at that point with the sale of that racket that you could go into any sporting goods store, any tennis club pro shop, any tennis specialty store, and you could find the Donnay Pro 1 hanging on the shelves right alongside the Wilson Pro Staffs and the Prince rackets. It was iconic. It was that much of a push from Donnay. They even had a Donnay Pro 1 tennis racket commercial at one point. I'm sure you can find it still on YouTube. So I played with that racket. A lot of people wanted it. I wanted it. I went out and I got it, and I played with it, and I loved it. I absolutely loved that racket. Had a decent flex, big sweet spot. I got to try to be Andre Agassi. I got to pretend to be my hero on the court. In 1991, they released a new model, different color scheme, right before the US Open. It was orange and gray, right? I still have that one. This was my high school racket for my senior year. I played this all through my senior year, as well as several years of college with intramural club league stuff. I played this racket. It's in really good shape still. I loved this racket. I still love this racket. The problem is it's a little too heavy for me now. I can't handle it. It's too heavy. But that was the racket that Andre Agassi used when he won Wimbledon in 1992. The first year he ever entered Wimbledon, he won it, and he won it with a Donnay Pro 1 OS. Donnay was riding pretty high at that point. Now, were they out of financial trouble? Not entirely. They were still producing other graphite rackets. I've tried some of those. They weren't bad. Some of them I liked better than others. They were decent, and at the same time, I was testing other rackets like Yonex, Slozengers. I always came back to my Donnay Pro 1. No matter what racket I played, I always found my way back to that one. But after 1992, we got into 93, and Agassi's deal with Donnay ended. Agassi left. He went to Head, which saw the birth of another iconic racket, right? The Radical Tour Bumblebee 107. But we're not here to talk about Head. That's a great racket, though. So glad I found that one on eBay. Donnay had lost their marquee player. They didn't have a lot of other pros, at least not at the very high levels, using their equipment. And, of course, things started to slide again, and they started to struggle. But they didn't stop making rackets. They kept producing rackets. They kind of shifted their focus towards more of the recreational players, towards more arm-friendly rackets. If you're like me, you've been struggling with tennis elbow, maybe some arm pain, some wrist. They started working on technologies to make the rackets more comfortable for people like myself who are a little older. And they had some interesting innovations. They introduced, in some of their rackets in the early 2000s, they introduced a weighted butt cap system where you could swap the butt caps out and change the weight and the handle and affect the balance. Pretty much identical to what Solinco is doing now. They also had a series of rackets that had slide weights, right? So if you looked at where the grommets were, right, these were grooved out along here, along 3, 9, and 12, and they had a slide piece. It was a tube shape, and you could slide that in to the grommets and change the balance and the weight of the racket without adding lead tape. So you wouldn't see people putting lead tape on the rackets. They could slide these weights in. It was a kind of an interesting concept and a very interesting idea. It never really took off. They introduced foam filling. They started foam filling their rackets with something called Xenocore, which is supposed to be an extremely lightweight foam. They started foam filling the rackets, trying to make them more comfortable. And there's other technologies we'll talk about more in a moment. But they kept going. The problem is by 2013, they got dropped. Tennis Warehouse dropped them, no longer carried them. I think I'd read that at some point they were picked up by a European sporting goods manufacturer, sporting goods distributor that did distribution in mostly Europe. So you would see Donnay Racquets in various stores around Europe. Their U.S. market-based share was kind of down the toilet. It's not gone, wasn't completely. But it was greatly reduced. But so why am I talking about Donnay Racquets, right? Well, a couple weeks ago was Father's Day. They came to me and they said, "What do you want for Father's Day?" Well, of course I'm going to say a tennis racket. Well, what racket do you want? There's a lot of good ones out there that I'm looking at right now. But I decided, maybe something a little different. Let's go over and look at the Donnay website. They have a website. I went over to their website, pulled it up. I'd looked at it before. I'd noticed that they were offering some BOGOs, where you buy one frame, get a second frame, no charge. Or you could buy one frame and get a completely different frame, a mix and match. No extra charge, so you could try a couple of their rackets. But as I'm going down the list and seeing what they've got, I noticed there was something new that I had never seen before. Went ahead and clicked on it, and right there, brand new for 2023, was a Donnay Pro 1 OS. Brand new model. 107 square inches. Gorgeous racket. Absolutely gorgeous racket. Most of the rackets have this same color scheme design. They're black. I like black, so you know that was a no-brainer for me. I was able to work out a deal on them. I was like, this is what I want. This is my Father's Day gift, and I got it. So now I have my old Pro 1 from 1991, and I have the latest one from 2023. Two very different rackets. Let's talk about what's going on here. So, the original, with strings and overgrip, this is running somewhere about 352 grams. 6 points head light, 64 reported 64 RA, 21 millimeter box beam. Okay, heavy racket, a little flexible, not too stiff. Very nice. Well, what's the new guy? What's the new kid here? 21 millimeter box beam. About 6-7 points headlight with strings. Without strings, it's 10 points headlight. Reported RA of 62, but I have a feeling it's going to play softer, and I'll talk about why here in a moment. 300 with strings and overgrip, 326 grams. Much, much lighter. Not only that, but you can get this in 3 different weights. They make a 295, a 305, and a 320. And with each weight, the balance does shift. Gorgeous racket. Absolutely gorgeous. What else is different, though, right? It has the Xenocore. This is an octa-core, which means it has 8 layers of foam with carbon, right? Layered through the frame for ultimate comfort. It is another technology Donnay's been playing with the last couple of years. It is a unibody, which means from tip to tip, this is one piece. There is no pallet. You strip this down, it's a solid piece all the way down to the end, which means no trap door. There's nothing under here. It's a solid stick. So instead of flexing here on the RDC machines, it flexes from all the way back here, which makes it play a lot softer and a lot easier on the arm. But is it going to stand up to the original? Is it worthy of the Donnay Pro 1 OS name? There's only one way to find out. It's not too bad out, a little smoky. If you're like in my area, you'll know the smoke from those wildfires has not made it a great day. But it's not raining. Let's get out and see how this hits. Okay guys, here we go. We're going to start off with the OG from 1991, the Donnay Pro 1 OS. Orange and gray, the racket that Agassi used to win Wimbledon in 1992. Felt very familiar, not going to lie. Stable, extremely stable through the ball. Very solid. I mean, it has a lot of mass. It didn't have a lot of vibration in the frame. I struggled hitting backhands with it, and I had a similar issue with the new version as well, and you'll see that here in a little bit. Two-handed was a lot more success. Slice, of course, wasn't that great either to start out. I haven't hit this racket in a very long time. But once I kind of got a groove with it, it was not bad. It was really familiar, actually. Very, very nostalgic. Took me quite a while. I did not hit this racket well today. It's been so long that it just really struggled to find a rhythm with it. I do finally kind of get a rhythm here a little bit later on. And the weight is huge. It's over 350 grams. That's in that like 12-ounce range. It's like RF97 range weight. And it is a little hefty for me. It's a little hard for me to get it around like I want. But it didn't feel bad at all. I really do still love this racket. I just wish my arm would be able to handle it like it used to. Notice that, in both cases, if I was just kind of pushing through the ball a little bit, I was kind of okay on shots. If I had a little bit of pace, I was okay on shots. If I really went for one, I struggled to find the rhythm for it. I'd end up hitting it too early or too late. Most of those balls would end up back in the fence. See, those are just nice little steady, just hit the ball back over. A little clean, slice forehand. The racket is strung with True Pro, which used to be Tier 1, Tour Status. It's not a bad string. There was a nice slice right there. But see, as soon as I go back to the one-handed backhands, I kind of float them or I hit them just clean right in the net. Just really struggled. There was a good one. To hit a solid driving one-handed backhand at all. Slice wasn't too bad once I got a feel for it. There we go. That wasn't a bad ball. Late. But, still a fun hit. I really still enjoy this racket quite a bit. And I'm glad I held on to it. I mean, here it is over 30 some years later. There was a good ball right in the corner. Other corner, there we go. But feels and hits massively different compared to most of the other rackets I've been playing. A lot of that is due to the weight and the head size, 107 square inches. It's the sweet spot comparison is ridiculous. It's like some of my rackets I've been hitting 92s, 93s, 98s, 100s. Some of those rackets, the sweet spot's like trying to hit something with a fly swatter, and this is like trying to hit something with a stop sign. It's easier to connect with this larger head size, but I did struggle on dialing in the sweet spot on both these rackets, so it was frustrating for me. See, a few more here. We're going to be pulling out the new kid on the block. We're going to go over here and get a switch out, and now we have the all-new for 2023 Donnay Pro 1 OS 107. I actually did a round warming up. I used this racket, and I struggled quite a bit with it. It originally came strung with Donnay. It came pre-strung with a Donnay X polyester string. I think it's a 16 gauge round poly. Wasn't a bad string. But when I tested it on my tension tester, my app on my phone, which actually has been fairly accurate, it came back with like 33 pounds. I hit a few balls with it, pre-strung, and it didn't feel like it hit at 33 pounds. And I thought maybe the app just wasn't reading the string bed properly. I did restring it. I strung it with a Quattro Twist from Ytex at 50 pounds. I figured 107 head size. It's probably going to pack quite a punch. I need to maybe have a bit more control, and it hit very stiff in the warm-up round. It feels a little bit better in this round here, but in the warm-up round it felt incredibly stiff. I think I need more time for the strings to kind of settle in. See right there into the fence. Really had some difficulty dialing this in a little bit. There's another one. Jeez. I went from a racket that was 350 grams, 52 grams, to one that's 326. And so my timing starting off is really bad. Hitting a lot of balls late and sometimes a little early. But when I make solid contact, it does feel really good. I don't get any vibration out of the racket, but I wouldn't, at the same time, I'd say I'd still get some feedback. Like, I kind of understand where I'm hitting the ball if I'm off line a little bit. There we go. That wasn't a bad ball. Just trying to get through it. But same thing, as soon as I try to maybe open up on one, I'd send it into the fence. So I'm going to have to spend some more time with this frame to really get a feel for it. I had a similar experience hitting this one that I did hitting the original Pro 1, is that on the backhand side, I lacked some stability. And I think it has more to do with the size of the head than the, the frame itself. The frame feels great on forehands, but I've got some wobble on the backhand side. And I think it's because the frame is a 107 as opposed to like a 98 or 100. That being said, two-handed, there was a good one. Two-handed backhands felt really good with this racket. I felt like I could kind of drive the ball a little bit. Floated it. But once I get it, same thing with the slice. It took me a minute to kind of get it evened out, figure out where do I need to be hitting this ball to get it across the net nice and clean without floating it. There was one. There we go. Forehand slice. I struggled on forehands today. But here, if you may start to see, I'll have a run here where I hit maybe 6 or 8 or 10 of them in a row right in the box. I changed my grip. I usually hit an Eastern grip. I was struggling getting the ball in the court. Nah, I haven't switched yet. I just sent that to the fence. I was struggling to keep the ball down. So I said, well, I'm going to roll it to a semi-Western grip, see how it feels. Immediate difference. And so I would say that the racket probably reacts a little bit better to a heavier topspin motion or swing path. You'll notice a lot of my balls are not clearing the net by much, but they're landing behind the service line. This is where I've switched to that semi-Western grip, and immediately I saw results in terms of the ball consistency. So maybe this might be a kind of frame I need to focus on a semi-Western grip with it if I really want to continue to hit it and have any success. But extremely comfortable, really like it. I'm gonna need some time with it. I noticed when I was packing things up at the end of the introduction video that the new Pro 1, the 2023 model, the beam mold, the beam pattern, the shape looks pretty much identical to the Head Radical Tour from 1993. It looks like the same mold. Side by side, they look like they're the same width, the same everything. So I would not be surprised if this new model the mold is a clone of the Radical Tour 93 model, because it has the same beam width and shape. So I'm having a lot more success with that semi-Western grip. Hitting two-handed with this was really easy as well. Overall, I like the frame so far. It does seem to have a unique kind of sound and feel. I think that's because of the mold. It's like I said, we discussed earlier, it was a unibody. It is all one solid piece from end to end. There's no pallet, and I think that does have an impact on how it sounds just coming off the string bed, how the frame reacts. But it does play fairly soft, but not as soft as I anticipated. Getting ready to close things out with it. I did spend some time hitting serves with it today. Hit pretty good. That's it for today, guys. That's the new Donnay Pro 1 OS. 107. Hope you enjoy.